welcome to the AFTV podcast, here again on the back of a couple of very encouraging victories. Joining me to discuss the upturn in our fortunes, that banner and Wenger's response, to name but a few subjects, are the popular but rarely seen on the podcast, Mr. Moh Haider. How you doing, mate?
How's it going, guys? Not too bad, thank you very much.
Good man. And a special guest from the Golden State of California is Jordan Weeb from the Fresno Gooners. Jordan, good evening. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good to have you on. Great that we've got a few victories to talk about, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, it feels good.
For real. All right, Jordan, Fresno Gooners, you guys, you and your wife, took a trip, a cross-country trip from the west side to the east side over pre-season to, hooking up with all Gooners along the way and sort of getting their story about how they, what drew them to the Gooners and why they support Gooners. And it culminated in the trip to see the Red Bull Arsenal game. Was that right?
Yep, that's what we did. We were on the road for about a month, hanging out with other folks that support Arsenal in their kind of local towns and cities and stuff. So we've been Oklahoma, Chicago, Kansas City, New Orleans, North Carolina, Austin, all over the place. So yeah, it was kind of a cool project, especially just because Arsenal, first time they came over, in 25 years, I think it was. Mm-hmm. So it was a pretty rare thing, for Arsenal to come over stateside. And so we thought, why don't we just, head out there, hang out with some folks along the way. And, then we ended up making a book about it. So the project's called We All Follow the Arsenal. And, we got, a bunch of different guys who, do design and, illustration work. To kind of lend their talents to us and put it together with some of the documented photography that we took on the trip into a book. So yeah, man, it was a really, really cool project. It was fun to do. Cool.
Good stuff. All right. And when is this out? I mean, is it available for people to see, like the.
Yeah, right now, we actually, ran a Kickstarter, back in June to, help fund the book, and the project. And so, it's actually the hardcover books. They're only for folks that backed our Kickstarter, but we're actually in talks right now, to maybe put out like a supplementary thing. Cause I mean, I took about 3,500, 4,000 photos, so only 24 of those went into the book. So we've got quite a bit of content that we could probably make something else happen. So we'll probably be maybe in the new year, January, middle of January, letting people know if they can if they want to get their hands on that. So
good stuff. All right, coolio. So you guys, if you want to get hold of the book, you'd have to have paid for it to see it, but I'm sure they're working on other ways of doing it. Get in touch with @Fresno Gooners on Twitter. It's a great scheme. It's a great project. I'm surprised. I'm actually glad and heartened that it probably brought you and your wife closer together. I couldn't imagine, being on a road trip in such,
being in like 15 to 20 square feet of each other for 35, 36, 37 odd days, it can be a challenge, but we definitely,
it's a make or breaker, isn't it?
And there's a solid connection there, you know?
Good man. All right, let's move on to the games. Great win against Borussia Dortmund last Wednesday, guys. Jordan, I'm going to start with you. What did you make quickly of the game? What's your review of the game? How would you sum it up?
Yeah, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of before Dortmund's really made a challenge for Champions League last year before that, when they were in the final against Bayern. It reminded me of kind of a vintage Arsenal Champions League performance, right? The one that it reminded me of was when Song takes the ball down the left side and does a little 1-2 to himself, and then crosses the ball into Van Persie, and he scores, and we get out of there with a victory. It seemed like it was a pretty complete performance, for me at least. Defensively, we looked a lot more solid. and it looked like we were at a pretty good level, a level that we haven't been in the last several weeks. So I was obviously pleased with it, and especially getting through to the knockout stages.
Mo, did you see that sort of performance coming?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it coming. No, that's the answer to your question. I did not see that coming at all. And Dortmund, people know about the struggles in their league. They lost today. They're actually now bottom of the league.
Unbelievable.
But in the Champions League, they've actually been very good. And in England, we've seen teams do that in the past. You think Liverpool, when they went on to win the Champions League, they were terrible in the league, but it kind of provides a bit of a safe haven for some clubs. And they can pull out a performance, knowing that their form in a particular competition is quite good. So I was expecting that from Dortmund. But in all fairness, I don't actually think they played that badly. I just feel, in the Arsenal Fan TV interview that I did with Robbie after the game, Robbie actually said, Arsenal out Dortmund. And I think that really summed it up. We played such a brilliant high-tempo pressing game. And for all the people that want Klopp to manage our club, it's as if he managed our club on that day, because we employed the tactics that Dortmund are so famous and so praised for. I was very, very happy with it. Damian Martinez as well, in goal for a massive Champions League game with such high stakes, pulled off a brilliant save to keep us at 1-0 in the first half. And that's a sort of moment in the game, especially for Arsenal, with our kind of inability sometimes to hang on to leads. That's the sort of moment in the game that makes all of the difference. And I really feel like we pushed on and we were clinical. We did very well in that game.
Indeed, quite. Okay, so going into yesterday's game then, Mo, going back to you. Did you feel that, there's been other points in the season where we've had good wins coming off of, Champions League or whatever performance, and then we sort of dipped, the performances dipped straight after. Coming into yesterday's game, the 12:45 kickoff, game after the Champions League game, recent history has told us that we've never really done very well with those two factors into account. What was your feeling going into the West Brom game?
A lot of people were saying, West Brom are crap and look how they played against Chelsea and all of that sort of stuff, and kind of almost making out like it's going to be an easy game for us. And I wasn't under that illusion at all, based on the fact that it's 63 hours between the two games. That is very, very difficult at, that sort of level of football. So I expected a very close game, to be honest with you. I thought it'd be a 1-goal margin. I thought it'd be 2-1 to Arsenal, but, 1-0. And it was a very close game. But the one thing I have to say, whoever's listening to this right now, get back to Arsenal Fan TV Podcast on Twitter and let me know whether this is true, what I'm about to say. When Arsenal lose games, people talk about tactics. People talk about Wenger's inability to employ the correct tactics for a game. That's when we lose. You, the listener, right now, when was the last time you praised the tactics after we won? Has anyone even stopped to consider just how brilliantly tactically astute we were against West Brom, how pragmatic Arsene Wenger was? There weren't times where we committed too many people forward. We were brilliant. There was one or two scares in the whole game that I can remember, and that was actually in the first half. It wasn't even like we were overcommitting. It was just, as you do in football, you occasionally get caught out. Other than that, the tactics, the discipline was absolutely brilliant, and I thought Arsene Wenger nailed the tactics there. Now, did you notice that? As a fan, did you notice that? Did you take the time out to praise him like you would when you criticise him when he fails to employ the tactics that you want? Because on Saturday, I was very, very happy with the way our team set up.
Jordan.
Yep.
How would you respond to that? Would you agree with what Mo said, or did you think that the performance was, fair to middling?
No, I would agree on a number of levels. I think that what it reminded me of was when we went on a run after beating Bayern in the Champions League, where we played really, really pragmatically, kind of echoing what Mo was saying, right? And we're setting up and we're being very, very disciplined, and we're not maybe, as to use a Wengerism, naive defensively as we have been maybe at times this year. It was really encouraging to see that. I don't know if Wenger necessarily enjoys that, playing that way in that kind of pragmatic, discipline, keep your shape style. But I think in the end it gets results, doesn't it? And so I generally tend to agree with Mo on that. I think Wenger still, for whatever reason, because he's this kind of flawed genius in some ways, he has these ideas about how teams should set up and buying so much attacking talent. I think he'd like to play that way, but as we can see, that leaves us really vulnerable on the break, and so it might be one of those things where he's trying to sort that out himself and went back to basics for this game in that kind of pragmatic way. So yeah, generally I would agree.
Yeah, it seems like just leading up to the game, the players were talking a lot about, they know they've got to get it right. They know they've got to get it right amongst themselves. So, as you guys say, I mean, it seems as though Wenger and Bold and Banfield and them guys, they've been trying to, get it into them, drive it into them, the need to stay tight and compact and, defensively sound, 2 banks of 4. And I think generally throughout the game they did do it. I mean, there were points where we were caught up ahead, as Mo said, but to use a phrase that Dave Seeger used the other day in the Arsenal discussion is mostly what I saw was the marionette style. So you'd have one fullback going forward, one fullback staying back to retain that sort of bank of 3. And also Flamini was a lot more disciplined, I thought. In yesterday's game.
Didn't look the most comfortable on the ball, but he was definitely positionally there.
Indeed.
On Flamini, in the first half, I noticed more than the second really, but I didn't see him misplace a single pass.
His passing was for 100%, I think, in the first half.
Yeah, right. It was.
Go on, Mo.
Okay, because in the second half they were shooting towards my end, and I wasn't able to watch Flamini as closely. But the one thing I look out for with Flamini when he's playing is what do we miss out on in terms of Arteta's skill set, and that is a big part of that is a passing. But I was really, really, really pleasantly surprised with Flamini. I didn't know it was 100%, but I didn't see him misplace a single pass. I thought he was very tidy.
Indeed.
Yeah, he actually ended up with a 96% passing completion rate for yesterday.
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal statistical information there. Good going.
I got my swaka up,
I'm going to give you guys a statement from @Johnny Rodley, and he says the simple fact is we were happy with a 1-0 win just against WBA. Says it all. Chelsea would have put 6 past them, so he's not 100% happy. He's not entirely satisfied with what we've done, but a win's a win. Whether you win by 1 or whether you win by 6, you only get 3 points, don't you?
Yep.
So okay, cool, all right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I cannot agree with that point. We are not going through a great time as a club. The last Premier League game we won was at the start of November against Burnley. Any victory will do. I don't care if it's come off the goalkeeper's face and gone in. If we get a 1-0 win, that's all that matters. Winning breeds confidence. Confidence breeds winning. So let's just get that first win out of the way. When we're a team on form, then judge us if we're not scoring 6 in a game. Right now it was about the win, and we want that pragmatic style of play. That pragmatic style of play generally gives you the 1-0s rather than the 4-0s. So when we needed that pragmatism, we got it. So let's not complain about it, because if we didn't get it and we drew or lost, we would be complaining non-stop. Let's just enjoy that win.
Indeed. Okay, good stuff. All right. So let's move on to who stood out for you as star performers or key men, Mo?
Oh, Santi Cazorla. He was brilliant. Honestly, in the second half, I noticed the positions he was taking up. He was always available for the ball. He was dictating play with his short little passing. It was just superb to watch. And the moment of magic for the assist, that was absolutely superb. You don't often see Cazorla, beating someone for pace, but he, with a combination of skill and pace, he absolutely put it on a plate for Welbeck. And that was just the biggest moment of quality. Often in football you'll see the things that make the difference, the things that lead to the goals, are moments of perfection. What Cazorla did was a moment of perfection. And, when you've got players that can produce that, that's what makes the difference.
Jordan, standout players for you?
Yeah, I would say actually Welbeck for me was a standout performer, only because you could see that he was taking up to positions to get into a position to score, right? So he's making the runs. He's there actually was a through ball from Ramsey where he had a pretty good chance, and the keeper just made a great save in the first half. But for me, he even though he was on the wing, he still was really central to our attack. And so for me, and he was rewarded with the goal. And like Mo said, that was a moment of perfection from Santi, 100%. And he did really, really well to get in the right position to put that ball in. So for me, Danny Boy would be my man of the match for that one.
Indeed. What I also noticed, especially with the front three, I mean, people were saying that when Giroud comes back, he's going to be central, he's going to remain central, and then Danny and Alexis will be swapping. But what I saw yesterday, what I noticed is that they were all interchanging positions at times. You saw at times Giroud on the wing.
Yep.
Danny central and Alexis on the left, and it was kind of like mostly, I suppose, Giroud was central, but he was taking up positions out wide and letting the others sort of have their moment in the way. Did you notice that as well, Mo?
Actually, no, I didn't, to be honest with you. I didn't notice the Giroud kind of interchanging that much, but I do agree that I did notice Welbeck not just limiting himself to being on the wing. Sanchez, as we know, he'll cover every blade of grass. But Welbeck did put himself about a bit. The thing is, I don't think the three players are capable of interchanging because only for the reason that Giroud, I don't think, has any place on the wing. He doesn't have that pace or the trickery to really do something on the wing. He has the hold-up play for the central area of the park. So I would be a bit wary of that sort of tactic being employed where Giroud finds himself out on the wing, because I'd feel much more confident with him being the recipient of the ball in the middle.
Okay. The spine, Jordan, we had a very strong spine. Koscielny was back.
I was going to say, Koscielny makes a world of difference.
Mm.
Yes.
Absolute world of difference at the back.
And who do you think benefits mostly from that? I mean, I know the team as a whole do, but do you reckon that Mertesacker's benefited from him returning?
Right, because if I'm comparing and contrasting the performances when Monreal, for instance, plays center back and pairs with pair, they have. While they're different in size and speed and those sorts of things, they actually have a fairly similar game, right? Not the best one-on-one defenders. They're not going to be the brute types that are gonna push people around, but they're very aware and astute positionally, right? They're able to cut out a lot of the moves that oppositions are making, before they start to begin, right? Whereas, there's a bit better balance, isn't there, with Per and Koscielny together, whereas their skill sets kind of complement each other, and I think that was pretty evident yesterday, and it gives us a more, solid back line as a whole, right? You see, Gibbs being able, before he got taken off, but Gibbs being able to be a little bit more free in his role, in terms of getting up and down the pitch. And that's, I think, thanks to Koscielny, right? Playing that next to him. So, Koscielny's massive, important player for us.
Mm-hmm. Mo, do you agree with that? I mean, the spine, from Koscielny in the middle of the midfield, we had Flamini being very disciplined, and obviously Giroud up front. We've hardly seen that this season, have we?
Yeah, and honestly, having Koscielny back, just watching him play yesterday, I'd forgotten just how good he is. He really is a superb defender, and he does make the world of difference. And you say, who are the biggest beneficiaries? Who's the biggest beneficiary from Koscielny being on the pitch? It's the fans. Because, when we have to watch Monreal in the middle every single week, people are slating Arsene for not signing that defensive cover. And, justifiably so. But when Koscielny's there, all of them problems are forgotten. He makes the world of difference in the middle.
Indeed, quite. All right. Welbeck's goal. Brilliant header. He hung like a salmon and had the he had the leap of a
basketball move from him.
Jordan. I was going to say that. I've got it all wrong. I was going to say he leapt like a salmon, hung like Jordan. Had that kind of hang time, didn't he?
Yeah. There you go. Your basketball reference for the day.
That was an imperious header. I mean, a couple of minutes before, I think it was Santi Cazorla had missed one. He was probably about 4 inches too short or whatever, but it just shows, we don't really score that many from wide positions, from crosses. But his goal and Alexis's goal a few weeks ago against Hull or Burnley, I can't remember. Yeah. Just goes to show that we're capable of doing it.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention, you could talk about Cazorla missing his, and the other Cazorla missing the first half. But for me, that game was almost kind of similar to the United game at home, where we dominated the first half, had a clear chance with Wilshere, and on this occasion it was Cazorla, hitting it way too close to the keeper, going into half-time at 0-0. And you do kind of worry, are we going to pay for that missed chance? Against United, unfortunately, we did. Luckily, against West Brom, we didn't. But, I was very worried about the similarities between the two games, and a little bit nervous, but, still retain the faith that we'd do something and win that game.
Indeed. All right. Okay. So let's move on to, we won the game. Let's move on to events post-match.
Before we do that, can I just highlight just one thing? When I saw the team lineup for the West Brom game, no Gibbs and no Chamberlain, and it was clear for all to see that against Dortmund, Gibbs was man of the match. He was absolutely superb, and Chamberlain was brilliant as well. One of the standout performers. And I certainly question Arsenal's team selection there, but clearly we did the job. We were very, very well set up. And I was talking to Robbie today, and I have to give him credit for this because it's something that I hadn't considered and I hadn't really heard anyone else mention. But Welbeck didn't play against Dortmund. Chamberlain played 90 minutes. And Gibbs obviously played against Dortmund as well and was all over the place. Now, with Koscielny coming back in, we were able to give Gibbs a rest, a player that is known to be injury prone, and put Monreal out, who actually did end up getting injured. I'm not saying that Gibbs would have got injured had he started, but we are susceptible to injuries through a lack of rotation, especially defensively. And then also, bearing in mind that we've got another game on Wednesday, where Welbeck will be available again, but I'm sure we'll see Chamberlain come in on that in that game. It just makes you think that, look, Arsene Wenger does know what he's doing. He thinks about this every minute of every day. We'll spend maybe half an hour in a day thinking about this. And I think he does deserve credit for rotating the squad whilst maintaining a really good tactical setup and ensuring that we've got fresh players for the next game. So, credit where it's due there.
Jordan, have you got any more key stats from the game, Jordan?
Let me see here. Pull up my,
Because, even though we were
quite... a reputation as the stat man?
Yes, Stato. Even though we dominated most of the game, there were points. Saido Berahino was wrongly judged.
Hit the bar,
Hit the bar, wrongly judged to be offside. So there were moments where, I think maybe it was Koscielny because it was Koscielny's first game back. Obviously, he's not 100% with the pace of the game. He was the deepest player at certain points, but generally speaking, it was a good performance. I want to go to a statement we've got here from @FlirtZuka, and they say, "We have learnt from Anderlecht and Swansea games. Now we defend better as a team, and we will only improve. Come on, you Gooners." That's a very encouraging tweet. I think, a lot of people after the recent spate of games were worried that, and are very disillusioned, with the state of how we play. They all thought that Wenger was incapable of they didn't think it was just the players that were tactically naive, but the Wenger being tactically naive. And as you said, Mo, it showed that he's still, we can still be pragmatic, close, tight, and well structured. And the things people forget, Tottenham last season, we went to White Hart Lane. Defensively, 1-0. After we lost to Tottenham over at White Hart Lane a couple of seasons ago, we went on that run. We played, one-up football, if you want to call it that. You know what I mean? We
definitely. But Giles, this is my point, that people do not give Arsene the credit for the tactics that he does well, that work. But I think maybe it's because of the fact that, when they don't work, when Arsene Wenger's tactics don't work, they don't just not work, they just destruct terribly. It looks really, really bad. And when they win, it's quite subtle. The tactics that you employ, they're quite subtle. It's not that we're extremely defensive and, like a parking the bus sort of thing. So it's not obvious to everyone that, you know, we've just gone out purely to defend and caught on and won on the counter, for example. We're quite balanced with Arsene Wenger's tactics, apart from when we lose, and that's when people start slating him. Which is why I really want to call out the fact that, you know, credit to him, he did the right thing against Dortmund, did the right thing against West Brom, got 2 results, and hopefully, once we start winning, we'll get back to the days where we can actually play more free-flowing football.
So does that mean that you hold him responsible for when we lose and we come up with performances like the Swansea game, like the 3-3 draw against Anderlecht, when we lose against Manchester United? Do you hold Wenger accountable, yeah?
Along with the players, 100% yes. Just how we're giving praise to Cazorla. I'm not praising Wenger for what Cazorla did, because he did something exceptional. When a player does something exceptionally bad, Arsene shouldn't also be held accountable, but it's a joint effort. You praise Arsene for the tactics and the players for what they've done, and when it goes bad, you criticise Arsene for his tactics and the players for their mistakes.
Jordan, what's your view on that?
What's interesting is I actually think that the players have gotten a bit of a pass in some of the more obvious defensive miscues we've had. What comes to mind, Flamini's made a lot of mistakes, especially when they're really, really simple. Like I think when we played Man City, Aguero's making a late run into the box. Flamini has him up until the 6-yard box and then just stops, right? That's like a simple thing, right? And a lot of times, actually Tim from 7 a.m. Kickoff did a really, really nice piece on, when we concede goals, what's happening, right? And it seems like, there's a consistent pattern of players just switching off and being in the wrong position to defend really, really well. So I think that Moh's right in one sense that, when mistakes are made, Wenger shouldn't be held completely responsible, but there is kind of a joint responsibility between that communication between Wenger and the players. I think where the gap lies is Wenger isn't the most tactically hands-on type of manager, is he, right? He likes his players. We do the work in the training week, right? We get you set up. We're gonna talk through where we need to be and everything, and then you're gonna go out and execute it, and you're gonna figure it out for yourself. And so in that sense, he has a lot of trust in the players. But as we can see, when we make those silly mistakes, sometimes the players need to have a little bit more of a, maybe not so much trust, but some fear that they're not going to be able and selected for the team sheet, right? So it kind of is a balancing act, isn't it? So yeah,
interesting point, because Martin Keown kind of made those kind of points pre-game about the Wenger maybe placing a bit too much trust in the players to do their job. Yeah.
There's this really great scene. I don't know have you guys seen the Keane Vieira documentary that they did, Best of Enemies or whatever it was. I think and there's this really great scene where Vieira is talking about Arsene, and he says, what's Arsene's greatest strength? And he says trust. He trusts the players. And then what's his greatest weakness? And he says it's also trust, right? So it has that kind of ability to have two sides of the coin where oftentimes you can see how much faith and trust he's had in Ramsey prior to last season, right? And then he comes good. Performances this year have been a little bit middling, but he's still got the capability, right? But then you also have that downside of trust where he almost trusts them too much. So at least we can kind of adjust expectations maybe based on that. I don't know.
Cool.
One stat I want to call out from the game, and you probably won't even believe me when I tell you this. Yeah, Flamini did not get a yellow card. Unbelievable, right?
Pigs do fly then.
Exactly.
Any more stats, Jordan, before we move it on?
What was interesting, I was looking through the defensive, because we were obviously talking a little bit about the change in defensive quality we had yesterday. We made 25 interceptions to their 14 and 35 clearances to their 22. So that obviously says positionally we're in a better place to snuff out the moves that West Brom was making before they happened. So it's kind of supports that pragmatic style of play is a little bit more effective for us.
Yeah, and that only led to them having one shot on target. You can't complain with that.
Exactly.
Quite. Okay, let's move it on to matters off the field in the stands. We saw at the end of the game, when the players came over to congratulate and acknowledge the fans, a big red banner saying, "Arson, thanks for the memories, but it's time to say goodbye." There has been a shitstorm on Twitter about that. I mean, there's been shitstorms.
Is that the clinical term?
Yeah. There's been shitstorms, it seems to have gone up an octave every week, whether we win or lose now, and this is just the latest in a long line of shitstorms that have hit the Arsenal fans on Twitter. I mean, Mo, you were there. What did you think of the banner being shown at that point?
Yeah, I have to admit, my opinion of it has mellowed since the game. In the aftermath of the game, I was just so delighted that we had hung on to that victory, given that it was such a long last kind of 10 minutes. I was so delighted that we had hung on to the victory that it left a really bad taste in my mouth that had been done at that time. But then I have to admit, in hindsight, when I look at that, I criticise people for having a reactionary sort of judgment. And, where it's a bad defeat, people just walk out and they're saying, "Oh, Arsenal, Arsenal, Arsenal." And had we won, they would have been saying, "Yeah, he knows what he's doing, in Arsenal we trust." Now, one thing you have to commend them for was that this is not about one game for them. When people say, "Shouldn't hold the banner up after a victory," their response would be, "It's not about this game. It's not about this victory. We would have done it had we lost. We would have done it even in victory." And clearly they did. So you have to commend them that, look, they've got some conviction to their opinion. They held up the banner because it's something they believe in based on many, many years. But from my point of view, I personally think, we're having a really, really tough time of it. In the Premier League. And I really just felt that it wasn't the right time. It's a time to actually just get behind the team because, supporters is not just a phrase that's used to define a group of fans. It has a meaning. You're meant to support the team. And I think, if we go on a run where we win 3 or 4 games and they were to do it then, maybe I would have been a little less kind of upset by it on the day. But I just feel as though the players worked their socks off. We were very, very, well set up. I would have preferred people to have just got behind the team then. But, they did it after the final whistle, which, again, they would use as a justification and a fair enough one. My real problem with the banner was that it was just simply very, very disrespectful to a man that's got a lot of ability and who has had a lot of achievements with the club. I just think to undermine him or to almost make him the subject of ridicule in such a public manner, that just doesn't sit right with me. I just don't appreciate that.
Jordan, what did you make of the banner?
You know what? I'm actually going to stay out of this one only because I think that a lot of it centers on folks that spend a lot of money supporting Arsenal in the UK, and we can talk about 3% ticket prices and the rise and all of these things, and Arsenal's seemingly non-challenging position. Nobody's there to challenge him whatsoever. I actually, that's something for folks in the UK. I just like to get on with supporting Arsenal, get down to the pub early in the morning and drink my beer.
I mean, it's an interesting point you make, Jordan. I mean, some people will say that foreign Gooners, they can't have as much say, they don't know as much, and how can they be invested in the club because you don't make it to the games and so on and so forth. But there was a guy from California, came over from California, Steve I think his name was, and he was interviewed on Fan Talk, and he made the point that, it is disrespectful to give Gooners that live in foreign parts. They get up. I mean, you said you got up at 4:45 in the morning. I think.
Yeah. Kickoff yesterday was at 4:45, so we were up about 4:15, 4 a.m.
Exactly.
to get up and get down to the pub.
couple of our co-podcasters, Jordan and Rick, who live in Missouri and Cleveland, respectively. I mean, I know.
Yeah,
Rick,
I know Rick. Good
yeah,
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he gets up crack of dawn. Sometimes they don't serve beer until a later point in the morning, so you can't even have a beer. I mean, people do invest time. You look at people in Asia and Africa and South America and so on and so forth. I mean, it's not every day people can just fly 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 miles.
Right, and the folks that are at least that lucky enough to get over to the Emirates and watch a game, that's something incredibly special for them, right? Because they're spending not just
the ticket
not
for the
just
game,
time, but they're spending tons of money to get over there. Not let alone the cost of accommodation and travel and tickets to the game and everything else. And so it's a pretty special thing. At the same time, I can understand folks' perspectives that live in the UK and their home and away support, and get out to the games regularly. I can totally understand that, where we have the highest ticket prices in the UK, and the product on the field, maybe doesn't necessarily reflect that or that. So I generally try to stay in the middle. I'm not,
okay.
Arson knows best or Wenger out brigade. I'm just hanging out in the middle with a beer.
Okay. Good position. Okay, Mo, look, you've had campaigns in the past. You've had the You Spend, We Spend. Prior to that, I remember last season you had the Don't Eat Any Pies. What is it? Don't eat any pies or buy any merchandise. I can't remember.
Yeah, no pints, no programs.
That's it. No pies.
Yeah.
Those are very direct actions. So you're obviously you can obviously at least in a way sort of appreciate what these guys are doing, even though yours wasn't against an individual, it was more or less more directed at the club. To have the balls to do it, and I say this to you, Mo, was it really disrespectful? It was thanks for the memories. I mean, the one in the Dortmund game was enough is enough. That is a bit more harsh, I think. I think that's a more harsh statement, don't you think?
It's a bit of a backhanded compliment, though, right? Like, thanks to the memories, it's time to say goodbye.
It's so patronising. It's so incredibly patronising to the man, isn't it? Oh, thanks a lot. Now do one. It just doesn't sit right with me. Let me just make one thing clear, right? You Spend, We Spend is about the resources that us fans put into the club. I personally think we've got a right. I really do believe that, because I personally think we as fans are the true owners of the club. The day we lose interest is the day that club goes into oblivion. We own the club, and we've got a right to make sure that we are not taken for a ride. Now, with You Spend, We Spend, I am not pointing the finger or undermining a man who has done so much for the club. I'm pointing the finger at the board and attempting to make the fans come together to ensure that it's for the betterment of Arsenal Football Club and to ensure that we enjoy more success. My question with this banner is that if Arsene Wenger saw that banner and said, fine, I hand in my resignation, would we be better off for it going to the game against Southampton on Wednesday? I do not see how that can be the case. With You Spend, We Spend, it was done in a way that was proactive, and it was about communication. You can't protest at something that hasn't happened. I was saying that there's a risk we're not going to use our resources effectively. That risk has been realised. We haven't got a central defensive midfielder. We don't have a defender. That, clearly playing Monreal shows that. I was trying to be proactive about something. With this one, it doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth, because it was just very poor, in my opinion, to a man that has done a hell of a lot for the club. The board have not done a lot for the club. They have not done what Arsene Wenger has done for the club. If that was David Dean, I wouldn't have done that. I would have had faith in him, given his track record. Now, I know Arsene has ruined his track record to an extent, not fully, but partially. And people may say that, they don't have faith in his track record, but I still think his achievements should be respected. I don't think that protest respected his achievements.
But let me put this to you. I mean, you're saying that yours was proactive. Isn't theirs sort of proactive? People that are associated with that banner have been talking about this for years. You know, they have been talking. It's not something that's happened overnight. You know, this has been going on for years, and with every season and the lack of progress. I mean, okay, we won the FA Cup, but we haven't kicked on, have we? When you look at things, there's no real excuse for not kicking on.
Okay, I mean, you say we haven't kicked on, but what if we were to win the FA Cup and finish third this year? What if we were to win the FA Cup and get to the semi-finals of the Champions League this year? We don't know whether we've kicked on yet. We are going through a rough patch. We know that. But at the end of last year, the majority of Arsenal fans were fully behind Arsene. In fairness to the people that held up the banner, I know that some of them were Wenger out even at the parade, which, you know, at least they have conviction and consistency. But, you know, so from that point of view, fine, fair enough. Well, I mean, the only other thing I would say, if they believe that by Arsene Wenger leaving right now, today, Arsenal Football Club will be better off, then I disagree with that opinion. But then they're right for trying to do something about it because they're trying to do what's best for the club. But I do not see how that would make us better off. You know, imagine
should we be scared of change though? Should we fear change though? No, should we fear it? Because a lot of people, I call them, for want of a better term, Wenger apologists, always throw that back at people that want Wenger out. Is, you know, be careful what you wish for. You know, who we're going to get. That is a very poor
response.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I would say is that, honestly, you ask me whether you should be scared of change. Change at this stage would be something to be feared. Change at the end of the season when a manager has got time to bring in the players that he wants, to get to know the players, to make decisions on who he wants to keep, who he wants to get rid of, and to fully gauge the players that he's got in a squad. I won't fear change then. But right now, I think it's not the right thing to do, and I would fear it. Let me ask you something, both of you. If you were bookmakers, if you owned bookmakers, and you were pricing up Arsenal to finish in the top 4, if you got the news that Arsene Wenger has just been fired or has just left the club, would you think Arsenal are more likely? Would you shorten the odds, or do you think Arsenal are less likely, and would you raise the odds on Arsenal qualifying? If I was bookmakers, I would say, okay, Arsenal were 5-1, they're now 10-1. I think you're less likely to make top 4. And that's my point.
Okay,
if it makes us less likely to achieve what we need to achieve, it's not the right thing to do.
There's a school of thought that, I mean, okay, in response to that, say if the Arsenal board brought in a manager, you know, or a highly successful, highly decorated manager into the club, you know, a few weeks later, would the odds then shorten again? Do you think the odds would then shorten? I mean, because there's a school of thought that says, oh, we won't get any highly decorated manager between now and the end of the season. But Chelsea did it. Chelsea got in Benitez to steady the boat, you know, when they were going through a very, very rocky patch.
That's because Abramovich promised him a yacht and, like, more money than God.
Maybe so. Yeah. But, I mean, and the thing is, you know, that's what it might have to take to bring in I mean, if Wenger goes, that's probably what it will have to take to bring somebody in. It's not an impossible task, is it?
Even if we were to get a manager of that, or I say that stature, I'm not talking about Benitez, but the stature that we want in, even if we were to get that sort of manager in, it's better to do it at the end of the season. So I would rather say, let's just focus on getting behind the team now, and at the end of the season, we'll try and action the change that we need. That's what I did with You Spend, We Spend. I've been thinking about it for months, but I did it at the last home game of the season. Because any time before then, we've got objectives to achieve. Let's get them done first. Look, you know, the one thing I can say that I don't think anyone should really argue with is that people have freedom of speech. And whether you pay to come to the games or whether you don't, whether you're based 5,000 miles away, you've got freedom of speech. If you pay your money to come to the ground, or you pay to watch the club, or even if you don't pay, even if you're flipping, streaming it online, you still have an opinion. If that means you want to wear a certain item of clothing, sing a certain song, or hold a certain banner, you should not be subjected to abuse. You should not be subjected to any form of insults. But why not enter into an adult discussion with people? Ultimately, they're entitled to have their opinion. If they want to hold a banner up, fine. They're just as entitled to hold a banner up saying Wenger out as I am to say Wenger in. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't take away from the freedom of speech that people should enjoy to make their feelings known.
And I just want to say that we did try and contact the individual at the centre of this of this banner controversy, but we were, we basically, he politely declined. So, we did try to bring him on so we could engage in thoughtful discussion. But go on, man.
In defense of him, he declined because he's not an experienced podcaster. It's a very sensitive issue, and he didn't want to come in. And we've heard it on other podcasts where people go in and then they're mauled. They're basically thrown into the lion's den.
Yeah.
And I think he was a bit mindful of that, and fair enough. If anything, I'd say that it'd be a bit naive of someone to expose themselves to that. But hopefully, in time, we'll be able to have an adult, sensible discussion with people who were supportive of that banner to try and get their point across. But, I just think that the thing we have to be careful of is to not kind of vilify them.
Yeah, very true.
I've got a question for you, Mo. Okay, so I'm totally on board with you in terms of having a civil dialogue about things like this, mainly because of a commitment to free speech. You can have an opinion, everything else. Do you think Twitter has completely wrecked that?
Go on, Mo.
Yeah, I do. Look, a lot of people might have heard my podcast with Jeff Arsenal, and I've got no animosity towards him at all. People like to think that I do, but I don't at all. And he was accused of bullying because he basically sent out a tweet to his over 100,000 followers saying that he tagged someone in that tweet, I won't mention the name, and he said, you've embarrassed the club. People got back to Jeff Arsenal saying what you've done is bullying. Why would people say that? And that's purely because people know what the Twitter world is like. It's not bullying to do that, what Jeff did. In his defense, that is not bullying. All he's done is comment to someone, to their face, as much as you can on Twitter, and said what you did, in my opinion, was disrespectful to the club. The reason people thought it was bullying is because people knew the amount of abuse that person was going to get. And that is the fault of each individual on Twitter. It's fine to contact people, discuss it, share your opinion. Jeff Arsenal shared his opinion and was accused of bullying, and that's because of the point that you make there, where that, Twitter has ruined that.
The funny thing is, it seems as though Twitter has now become the barometer. I mean, it might only be 5 or 6 or 7 people making, popular people that make a statement or a similar kind of statement, and that seems to be, Arsenal fans think this, or this selection of Arsenal fans think this. The majority of Arsenal fans must think this. I mean, I'm sure it couldn't be further from. Well, we don't know if it's the truth or not, but it does seem as though Twitter, more than any other sort of thing, has become sort of the medium for which to start, to sort of find out where the point lies.
Definitely. And based on that, Yaya Sanogo is better than Lionel Messi, because I saw something that said root for Sanogo, favourite for Messi, and Sanogo was a clear winner.
There you go.
But you are right. People reference Twitter, as if it's some sort of sacred source, and it borders on the ridiculous. One other thing that I wanted to mention was that a majority of people are against the banner, but don't be under any illusions. There's a hell of a lot of people that supported it.
Yeah.
Many people are in defense of the banner. It might be because of free speech. It might be because they genuinely agree with what was said on the banner. They share that opinion. But let's not think that these are some sort of irrelevant minority. There's a hell of a lot of people that do it.
Indeed. Let me just go through a couple of tweets that we got. I'm going to start with @7 Contrarian, and he says the banner during the game was ridiculous and childish. We've got @MerkZP says the banner may have been a bit much. He's made mistakes and needs to fix things, but still deserves a little more respect than that. We've got @Was UK 2004, Wenger in or Wenger out, we want change. 9mm _ Gunner says Wenger in or Wenger out, will we scrape fourth? Gosh, I've got loads of tweets here. We've got a tweet from @ToddRoberts94 says, for me, Wenger's position, get behind him and the team. Let's see what happens between now and the end of the season. I mean,
Giles, if I may, look, 3 of the tweets that out of them tweets, 3 of them that you mentioned, one of them talks about the banner during the game. If it was during the game, I didn't see it during the game. If it was during the game, that is bang out of order. The 90 minutes are sacred. Just get behind the team during the game. It's not on to be doing that during the game. I didn't see it during the game. If it was, that's uncalled for. The second one mentions respect. And I think this is what it boils down to. it was disrespectful. It was just disrespectful, and that's the thing that makes me unhappy with that banner. It could have been more respectful. And an example of that is the third tweet that I want to call out mentioned that we all want change. So why not have a banner that says, we want change? You know, you do not have to disrespect an individual. I know that it's non-specific. I know that it might sound ridiculous just to have a banner saying, we want change, but in my opinion, it's better than the disrespect that banner showed to Arsene Wenger and how patronising and how rude it was to him.
Quite. Go on,
I just have one just nugget, one thought among all of this stuff. The one thing, and this is a deeper, more kind of philosophical point of discussion, just in sport in general. One of the hardest things for people that have been really, really successful, and had a lot of praise and that sort of thing, is knowing when to quit. And I think that one of the things that gets lost, particularly in this situation with Arsene, is how you can both respect him and his achievements and his success on the one hand, but also recognize and accept that maybe at this point he's held on maybe a bit too long, and you add into the fact that nobody challenges him, like I said, and he has a whole lot of yes men around him, and you make for, I think that's reflective, everybody kind of seeing that's reflective of maybe the strong feelings that you get and results in a banner like there was yesterday. And so I'm an advocate definitely for, let's respect him for his achievements. Absolutely. One of the most successful manager we've had at the club in our history. But at the same time, we can see that there are some blind spots that he has, and that those things are not going to change. And so we can have that, like we talked about earlier, in a civil dialogue, in an adult discussion. But a lot of the binary just name calling and mudslinging, that seems counterproductive to actually supporting the club.
Trite. Okay. All right. I've got a couple more tweets here. We've got one from @MarkyMarkJM, and he says, "Yes, a proper win. My 2 cents. If Wenger doesn't change his tactics to improve Arsenal, then he should go. He should respectfully go. The banner was no problem to me. Wenger's response, classy as usual. Here's something else. Not all change is negative. Chris_Butcher says, fair play to the guys who put the banner out. Whether you agree or not, at least they were consistent with their views." Let's move on to Wenger's response. Now, in the the post-match press conference, he was questioned, and he was pushed for an answer on several occasions or several times by the same reporter, and his response was no comment. And I don't feel I need to comment. Do you think his stance on that was the right stance by you, Jordan?
I won't judge whether or not it's right or wrong. I think it's classic Wenger. I think that's what he's always maintained, is that until you've managed at the levels that he has, until you have the same dilemmas, until you have the same pressure that you have consistently to win from the supporters, I think that's probably the non-answer answer that he'll always choose. And so it's kind of par for the course for me.
Mo, I don't comment on that. He snapped at reporters. Do I need to say it again? I don't comment on your question.
Yeah?
Thanks for the memories, but it's time to say goodbye.
I don't comment on that.
It must be hurtful, though, Arsene, everything that you've done to see your own fans holding a banner up like that.
I don't comment on that. Do I need to say it again?
Arsene, you had to ask the question.
I don't comment on your question.
Well, listen, Arsene Wenger's a very, very intelligent man, and let's consider the alternative. If he was going to comment, either he comes across and says, I fully agree with it, in which case, what the hell are you doing in that seat? Or he comes across and says, it's stupid, I don't agree with it, in which case he's arrogant and out of touch with the fans. Was there any answer that he could offer where he would come across well?
No.
Indeed.
It's a no-win.
Yeah, it's a no-win. It is a no-win.
yeah, he's a very intelligent man. And the people that put the banner out, clearly not Wenger lovers, whatever he would say, they would run with it. You know, I'm sure, unless he said, I agree with them wholeheartedly, in which case it comes back to why are you there. Whatever he says to argue against the banner, it would simply be used against him. Arsene Wenger's very, very aware. He does not need to be told how to interact with the media. And, of course, he did 100% the right thing.
Okay, coolio. All right, let's move on now. On the back of the game, we've got fresh injuries. We've got, I think it's Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's got a knee complaint or an ankle complaint or a complaint of some nature. 2 left backs have got complaints. We're going to assess them on Monday. Where, in your opinion, Mo, how do you view this injury situation? It seems as though when one comes back, two go out. You know, it just doesn't seem to let up. I mean, is it because it's World Cup year? I mean, Wenger said that in the last World Cup year, you know, the same things happened, but we've consistently been at the top of the injury table, you know, for years. You know, for nearly going on 10 years. I mean, what do you think we're not doing?
Giles, you know me, I offer my opinion on everything, but unfortunately I'm not a doctor. I do not understand what is going on. I really do not understand it. We're extremely injury prone. We've got so many injuries, but I actually think we're quite lucky that Koscielny came back, Monreal got injured, and had that not been the case, had Koscielny still been injured, what the hell would we have done? Who the hell would we have put centre-back against Southampton? In a way, we were quite lucky. And we haven't had any injuries in, Giroud's back, but, we haven't had any further injuries up front. Again, very lucky. The injuries that we've got recently are Arteta and, that's in an area where we're strongest, in the midfield, and that's where Ozil's been injured, and we've actually been able to cope with them. We've had both of our keepers injured, and we've had Damian Martinez come in and do very, very well. We had Matt Macy on the bench as our reserve goalkeeper on the weekend. Imagine if Martinez got injured. We're chucking a 20-year-old that we haven't even heard of to be on there. We're treading a very fine line, but we've had our fair share of bad luck, but the luck hasn't turned completely rotten yet. I'm just hoping that we get more people coming back than people going out. But with the injuries that we have had, I don't know how long Arteta's going to be out for, but if he's out in January, I just hope that it encourages Arsenal to spend the money when we need it.
Jordan, what's your views on the injury situation?
I have 2 very, very short, simple points. One, I have no idea why we got so excited about Shad Forsyth becoming the new training guy with Arsenal. We've just stayed the course, really. And 2, how the hell did Giroud get back so quickly? Because he seemed like, obviously he's the exception because he came back after like 6 to 8 to maybe 10 weeks, right? When he was supposed to be out till January. Right. So otherwise, we're just in the injury twilight zone, and it's a fact of life when you support Arsenal that the guys are going to go down. That's just, and maybe that's down to the tactics, or maybe that's down to how we play, or whatever else, or teams are a bit more physical because they think they can intimidate us by being more aggressive, and that leads to injuries. I don't know, but I at this point I've just accepted. We're just going to have at least like 4 or 5 starters out for significant time during the season.
And just going on from that, touching on Mo's point about the January transfer window, Jordan, are you confident? Do you feel confident that we're going to go out and make at least one purchase?
I think we'll get one. Whether that's a defensive midfielder or a center back is kind of up for debate. I'm really not sure which one would be more beneficial. But obviously we need some sort of reinforcement there, particularly on the defensive front. Wenger really, really likes transfers that suit him, if that makes sense, right? So he likes transfers that suit his philosophy, that suit the long-term vision of the club, that suit, right? He's not willing to go out there and just plunk the money down like a City or Chelsea or United this past summer are going to do. And so I think that presents obstacles in procuring talents into the squad. And so he really is kind of one of those guys that just is willing to make do with what he has in the side. I think that's another point of contention, if we can bring this discussion full circle, is he needs a David Dean type to go in there and make those transfers happen, because I don't think he likes doing it, quite frankly. And so we may need to advocate for somebody to come in and get those transfers done, mainly because Dick Law, the Texas guy, he's not doing like, no, man, doesn't work.
Mo, what do you think?
Listen, all I think, when I said, the whole you spend, we spend thing, I said at the time that I think we'll get a world-class player in, but I do not trust the board to spend our resources effectively. And I still do not trust them to spend the resources effectively. I don't think this board can be trusted, because none of them are true football men in my book.
Yeah, I was going to say that nobody's a football guy, right?
Exactly. Now, what I would say is the new TV deal for next season's Champions League is a 125% increase on the previous deal. Currently, UEFA are receiving from the English TV companies £133 million a year. That's going to go up to £300 million a year. What that means is that next year we are going to see record revenues. The TV money, the Champions League money is going to go up dramatically. As a result of that, we cannot leave it to chance. We cannot afford to have one of them final day, trying to qualify in fourth days. I do not want to see that happen. We need to really make sure we do everything in our power, get the players that we need to get to make sure that we get Champions League qualification next year. My aims are much higher for Arsenal than purely Champions League qualification, but the impact of not qualifying for the Champions League next year will be hugely detrimental to us, which is why in January I want us to go out there and do whatever we need to do. Whatever weaknesses we've seen by the end of December in our squad, we need to address them. We need to make sure we do not miss out on that goldmine of Champions League. And this isn't because I care about the money, it's because the money translates into the playing squad, and the playing squad translates into the major honours. That's the only thing I'm interested in.
And it's very important that we're mindful of the fact that the Champions League rights deal is up for grabs for next season, I believe, or season after, I'm not sure. And it won't be 500 grand a game, group games. It will be into the 7 figures. So it's big money. It's big money we're talking about now. Just to add that in there. Can we maintain the level? Can we maintain that level now? Because we're now up in and amongst the mix now, aren't we? I mean, we were a few points off, but we're not. I think we're just outside the top 5. I think we're 2 points outside top 5. Man United's in 4th with 22 points. I mean, Wednesday's game against Southampton now becomes crucial, doesn't it? I mean, with Southampton today, they lost 3-0 at home to 10-man Man City, I believe. Yeah, I mean, phew,
I don't think people realise just the picture that the table is showing us right now. I don't think people realise. Had we lost to West Brom on Saturday, we would have been 9th in the table. Or no, 10th in the table.
No, it would have been 10th or 11th. 10th
in the table. Yeah. We are actually 3 points off 10th spot. And we're level on points with Tottenham. Not everyone might look at the table every single week. I never would have guessed we'd be 10 points off Tottenham. Level on points with Tottenham. And 3 points off 10th. The next 2 games coming up, Wednesday and Saturday, yeah. In a week, we could be in the bottom half of the table, or we can be consolidating 3rd place in the table. It really is
that unpredictable time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and then we're going to go into the Christmas run-in.
Yeah,
it's right now. I just think it's so important to make sure that we get these 3 points from the board every week, because you imagine how much more weight that banner would have carried if we were 10th.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we've now building up ahead of steam. We've got to carry that on into Wednesday. I don't know what kind of team Southampton are going to, or what kind of how they're going to come out on Wednesday. I mean, I was there in the League Cup game, and I know we were playing some of our fringe players, but Southampton looked very, very accomplished. I'm hoping that the 3-0 today wasn't just a blip. I'm hoping, it carries on over to Wednesday, because, it's going to be, it's a 6-pointer, for want of a better term.
And Schneiderlin, if I'm correct, he was taken off, right? And he's kind of been their cog in midfield. So that might bode well for us as well. Indeed, quite. All right, coolio. So let's get our predictions for Wednesday then. Jordan, what do you reckon? Southampton at home? I say 2-1. 2-1 to the Arsenal. Good man. And Mo?
The boss is back, so I'm saying 2-0.
2-0. Cost the boss. All right, good stuff. Exactly. All right, good man, good guys. All right, I want to thank you both for coming on. It was very topical, very interesting discussion. Jordan, just to again, must reiterate, we all follow the Arsenal. What's going on with that? How can people get involved or hear about that? You can actually, we just use the hashtag We All Follow the Arsenal, and you can kind of search through all the photos and video, and there's been a couple articles, different things going on with that, and we are at Fresno, Fresno Gooners, and so you can get in touch with us there too, and connect with us. So yeah, good stuff, guys. And Mo, are you going to be there on Wednesday?
Yes, I am. I will be there, and just hoping that there's no banners, and I'm just hoping. That's all I want. You should bring a banner that says "I like kick." Just the 3 points will be nice. Yeah. But I will be there, and I don't know how many people listening go into the game on Wednesday, but just sing up for the Arsenal. I just wish that we could do more as a fan base and get behind our team a bit more, because the away atmosphere at West Brom was superb as usual, as it always is with the away fans. And at home, you go there, and you can see why people say that they don't go to home games, only go to away games, because it's a completely different animal. Just love to recreate that at home. Indeed, quite. On that happy note, I want to thank you both for coming on, and thank you, the listeners, for once again joining us. Join us again next Sunday when we review Southampton on Wednesday and the Stoke City Orcs on Saturday. Hopefully that's 6 points that we can be discussing on the Sunday. Thanks again. Tune in once again. This has been an Arsenal Fan TV podcast. My name's been Giles. Thank you and good night.